This is where California began back in 1769. For years, this area was San Diego's business and residential center. But neglect slowly took its toll on the aging community as business after business folded or pulled out. Then in 1968, the state of California acquired 12 acres of Old Town and turned it into a state park. A year later, San Diego celebrated its 200th anniversary, and more changes took place in Old Town. Decaying buildings were spruced up, and Old Town enjoyed a new lease on life. Old Town had been rediscovered. To give you an example of how much Old Town has changed just over the past 10 years, this used to be Sammy's 5 and 10 cent store. Across the street was Johnson's liquor store, Old Town laundromat, and the post office. They're gone now, replaced by antique shops and tourist-oriented businesses. But there are far greater changes anticipated for Old Town over the next several years that will radically change the face of this 210-year-old community. If funds are available, the state's master plan for Old Town State Park, which encompasses roughly 6 square blocks, calls for Old Town to be converted back to look exactly the way it did back in the 1800s.
Well, we would like to return the area as much as possible to what we call our historic period, which ranges from roughly 1821 to 1872. One of the big features that I'm looking forward to is the removal of the paved streets within the state park boundaries. This would do a great deal to give us an atmosphere of what the Pueblo would have been like. The streets will not be dirt, by the way. It will be a hardened material, perhaps colored concrete or soil cement, so that it will not be dusty or muddy.
Lee adds, according to the master plan, all but 10 buildings now inside the park area would be torn down by 1991 in order to build exact replicas of homes and stores that once occupied Old Town. For example, the Bazaar del Mundo would be demolished so the state could build a replica of the original Pio Pico house which once stood on that property. But many of the 4 million people who visit Old Town every year like it just the way it is.
Pretty neat. I've never been here before, but I like it. It's like being in the Old West almost.
I like all the old stuff and the Indian stuff.
Businessmen say if the general plan is carried out, they will be forced to move outside the state park, which would send shopkeepers scrambling for property in residential areas.
In the residential area where the houses are now are going to be converted over. And if not, say, torn down and a little rebuilt to accommodate more of the merchants. And you kind of feel sorry, you feel for them, the fact that this was their home. But the freeways are in and progress is there, so they will have to eventually probably move aside and let it come in.
Old Town has always retained a sense of calm and tranquility, but in the years to come, we can expect a modern-day struggle over what a centuries-old community should look like. Jesse Macias, News 8, Old Town.